Last week, I released a video that looked back at the last 10 years of this channel. And in that video was this little clip. This caught some people's attention and they wanted to know why I was sawing my hand plane. Well, this was actually a very interesting experiment I did a decade ago. I called it hand plane surgery. And while I don't recommend you do this to your planes, I thought you might enjoy taking a look back and seeing what I did and why. Then I'll tell you if I'd do it again. I want to stress that these were both very common planes. At least here in the US, you can find these models at pretty much any flea market for just a few bucks. I'm not destroying history here, and removing these two beat-up examples from the market does not mean that you're going to have a harder time finding good planes yourself. The goal was to mimic the function of the rare Stanley No. 10 Jackrabbit plane, which features a blade that can cut flush with the side of the plane's body. I decided to make two versions, a rabbiting block plane and a rabbiting bench plane. The hole I bored in the side marks the top of the opening. I had to extend that opening all the way to the mouth, keeping it aligned with the bed of the plane so I maintained a flat surface for the iron to lay upon. I started with a hacksaw, but I soon moved into power with a rotary file. Cast iron is very soft and easy to file, but it's messy and you don't want to breathe in the dust. I also did a fair amount of hand filing because, again, it was very important that the lower edge of the opening was flush with the surface of the inner frog. If I filed away too much on that bottom edge, I'd create a gap beneath the edge of the blade where chips would get stuck. I also had to make sure the overall size of the opening was large enough to allow the shavings to exit without clogging the plane. It was more difficult than it looked, because I didn't want to overly weaken the plane's body by removing too much material. On the larger bench plane, I had more room to create a larger opening, and I suspected that that would make that version perform better than the block plane. Everything also had to be smooth and free from burrs, or it would not work correctly. I used the rotary tool to enlarge the space on the frog where the chip breaker's screw head will set, so the iron may be shifted to the side. And I opened the mouth on the larger plane with some more hand filing. Next, it was off to the grinder to start modifying the cutting irons. I cut a notch on the side so that I could shift the iron inside the plane's body. This will give the plane a rabbiting function on only one side, but I reasoned that was better than nothing at all. Then I got to test them. I wish I had sharpened them a little bit before doing the test, but as I recall, I really just wanted to see if they would cut at all. I wasn't concerned with how thin I could make the shavings. And believe it or not, it worked. They did make shavings. Now, would I do this again, or more importantly, would I recommend you do it? No. It's completely impractical. The reason why Stanley No. 10 Jack planes are so rare is because few people need a rabbiting plane that wide. And I did have some issues with my homemade versions. For one thing, the opening on the side of the block plane version was just too small. It frequently clogged with chips. And by shifting the irons to the side, I opened up a gap on the opposite side of the iron, which made it too easy for the iron to skew out of alignment during use. You could solve that problem by substituting a wider iron, but I don't really see the point. Like a lot of those early videos, this was just for fun. I eventually ended up tossing the planes, but it was an interesting experiment, and I think it was fun to look back. See you next time. As the builders behind some of the top brands in the industry, Harvey Machinery has for decades been letting others take credit for their innovation. Now they've developed their own line of saws with the quality and features once reserved only for professional shops. The woodworking world is officially on notice. Harvey Machinery will be in the shadows no longer.